All right, it's time for another list type video. I love these things. Everyone gets angry. It's always a lot of fun. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually not going to rank each individually 1 through 32. Instead, I am separating them into 5 tiers. If you've been a fan of this channel for a bit, you know I typically like to just divide things into 5 major tiers. This kind of, I think, simplifies things a little bit because let's be honest, the difference between the 4th best receiving core and the 5th best receiving core should probably be viewed as similar. So the way the tiers work are it's the top 5, it's then the next 6, you have the middle 10, and then the following 6, and then the bottom 5. So that makes 5 tiers, 5 through 1 being the best. And let's just, without further ado, get into the top of the list. Actually, let's start at the bottom of the list and go the other way. That's more fun. We'll start at the bottom and then work our way up. So these are the bottom 5, and it's in alphabetical order. This is not in the exact order that I have them. I have ordered them, I have numbered them, but I'm only going to do that on the podcast is when I'm going to really get into that and let you know where they actually rank. So if you want to, know where your team actually ranked in each of these positional categories, check out the podcast. We're starting off with the NFC East this Wednesday, so it might be, today or tomorrow. Anyways, what you see on the screen, first, the Bears, who, we know the Bears are bad. I'll say it right now. They are 32. They are the worst receiving core, in my opinion. Also should mention, I am counting tight ends in this, so it's really just receiving options is the best way to view it. I'm not talking about, how well do you block. All I care about is, how well do you get open? How well do you help out your quarterback by gaining space? I like Cole Kmet fine. I like Ryan Griffin a decent amount, and I even like Darnell Mooney, but that's kind of really all they have, and I don't love any of those guys either, which is really kind of the concern. Ecomania St. Brown to me is more of like depth than anything. Velus Jones might be good. I don't know. They seemingly liked him. They drafted him in round 3. Dante Pettis, maybe he can regain that stuff with San Francisco. Maybe Byron Pringle can reach his full potential. But as a whole, it's not exactly an exciting receiving core by any means. I do have Jacksonville still on here, even though they, got the, paid a lot of money for very hyped up free agent Christian Kirk. That obviously is going to help to some degree. I don't think that he's a bad player by any means, but again, how much is he really moving the needle? You got Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, Laviska Shenault, Laquan Treadwell, even Jamal Agnew showed some flashes. So it's like they have guys who can do stuff, and even like Dan Arnold, Chris Manhertz, and Evan Ingram at the tight end position. Those are all fine guys, but one thing that we're going to see, and this is part of why I wanted to make this video, is, so when people ask, how is this team tier 4 or whatever, there's a lot of good wide receiving cores. Every fan thinks that their wide receiving core is underrated. So there are players here, and this isn't the worst receiving core in the world. I think it'll be better than it was last year. Like, I think Christian Kirk will still help, but it's still not great. It is tier 5 to me. I also have the Packers here at tier 5. The Packers, listen, again, there's options for the Packers. Christian Watson, who could really break out. He has a high ceiling for sure, although definitely, there's a reason why he was a second-round pick as well. There are some holes in his game, and we'll have to see if he can figure out those flaws. Allen Lazard's fine. Randall Cobb's fine. Amari Rodgers, I want to see more out of. Sammy Watkins, I want to see him play more games. Should be great week 1, but, what do we have from there? He typically goes off week 1. Doesn't do a ton after that. Also tight ends, Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, and Joshua Derega. I never even learned how to pronounce his name, so that's not a great sign. But again, there's options here. It's not a trash receiving core, and there is a chance, like, if you get a healthy Sammy Watkins and Christian Watson lives up to his potential, there's a chance it could be a lot better than this, but those are just 2 big ifs. The Panthers are one that I think people will be surprised is a tier 5, because DJ Moore is really good. I just have a lot of concerns outside of DJ Moore. And I would also say, I don't know if DJ Moore is elite. I like him. I like DJ Moore. I do. I think he's underrated, but I still don't know how great he is. And outside of that, Robbie Anderson wasn't great last year. Terrence Marshall, who I liked out of college, wasn't great last year. You have Rashad Higgins now, 6th rounder, Shee Smith. Maybe there's something there. Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, they like both of those guys. So, Tremble more of a fullback type guy, but really, I shouldn't say he's more of a fullback guy. He's more of a tight end, but he can also do some fullback stuff, and catch the ball. But as a whole, it's just a DJ Moore dependent receiving core right now. I want to see someone else step up, and I have some concerns about this Panthers receiving core that was really disappointing last year, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's disappointing again this year. Finally, the Titans, who again, there's reason to be optimistic if you're a Titans fan. You can talk yourself into this. A lot of it comes down to Treylon Burks, who I wasn't a huge fan of coming out of college. So if you like him and think that he'll be the next A.J. Brown, well, then this receiving core looks a lot better. But if you are like me and didn't find him great, it's him. Then you have Robert Woods, who, again, I like Robert Woods a good amount. He's a quality player. But is he going to completely control your receiving core? Probably not. Nick Erhine Westbrook is solid. I like him. I think he's a fine player. Should be a solid number 3. And then, but other than that, it's like, well, what's your fourth option? Kyle Phillips, Dez Fitzpatrick? I don't know. These are guys who I'm not super excited about. Austin Hooper should be solid as well, so that helps you a little bit, but it's still just, I can't put it above. Again, if you want to put one of these guys into following tier up, well, you got to take someone in that tier out, so that's kind of why I can't really do that. Next tier, again, all these in alphabetical order in terms of what you see on the screen. Obviously not, in terms of I put them into tiers. This is tier 4, and then tier 4 is in alphabetical order. I have the Bills as a tier 4 team. It's interesting because, again, part of this is there's a lot of good wide receiving cores. Stephon Diggs is awesome. I'm a little worried, are they too Stephon Diggs dependent? Jamison Crowder is an interesting signing, and that could work out. Khalil Shakir, an interesting draft pick, that could work out. You have, the Bills, or you have Aaron Rodgers' best friend, Jake Kumaro, so that's interesting. And then, for tight ends, Dawson Knox and O.J. Howard. The one guy I haven't mentioned yet is Gabriel Davis, who I think that'll really be the question mark. He was so good in that playoff game against Kansas City. Is he going to be this true number 2 guy who can be really good? Because if he is, this receiving core looks really good, but there's a question mark there. There is. For the Browns, again, kind of somewhat similar. Amari Cooper is very good. Like Amari Cooper a lot. But outside of that, what do you have? Njoku and Bryant are a good tight end tandem. Donovan Peoples-Jones worked well with Baker. I think he's a solid player. And then you have a couple of third rounders, David Bell and Anthony Schwartz, who maybe can do something. But it's definitely relying a bit too much on Amari Cooper, I think, who should fit that scheme well. And you have tight ends who can be effective as well. But this isn't a super exciting receiving core, I don't think. The Colts are another team who, again, part of this is I like Alec Pierce. So that's why I bumped them up to tier 4. And I thought Michael Pittman did some really nice things, and I thought that was good. Not a lot else. Mo Alley Cox is clearly their third option at tight end, who's good. I like him. But, for wide receivers, Paris Campbell really probably should just be a depth guy. Ashton Dolan, I kind of feel similar. So, they're really relying too much on Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, who are 2 players I like and think will be good. So, it's not the worst thing in the world, but the depth is just what's concerning here for me. The Giants here are at tier 4, which this is a team that they could end up with a great receiving core if everything breaks perfectly, because Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney were both very disappointing last year, but will they bounce back? Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe that was a reach. He's still a second-round pick. They like him. Maybe they're right. And then you got guys who should still be effective. Sterling Shepard should still be effective. Darius Slayton, PFF did not like him. He was their 4th least favorite wide receiver last year, but I think he can do some nice things at least. And then Richie James is probably just depth. Not much in the tight end department for the Giants. Ricky Seals-Jones probably their best option there, and he's still on his 5th team in 5 years. So that's kind of a bit of a concern, but I still do like the potential of Toney and Golladay enough to put him in tier 4, but it's just the other stuff. I can't put them any higher than this. The Ravens here are another team where they're not looking spectacular, right? But they have Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews is debatably the best. He was the best tight end in football last year for my money. He's an incredible receiving tight end, and he does so much for that offense that I do think that he is basically the main reason that they are tier 4, because, again, I'm including tight ends in this. And Rashad Bateman, I think, will be better once he gets a full, preseason. I think preseason matters a lot for receivers. I think that helps a ton. So that's kind of why I'm a bit more optimistic. Maybe Devin Duvernay, who I liked out of college, maybe he can finally start getting it going. They have a depth issue. There's no denying that. That's why I can't put them above tier 4. But, I like Andrews and Bateman enough to at least put them above the bottom 5 guys. Maybe you'll have the Panthers higher, but I get it. The Houston Texans are the last one in this tier where you have Brandon Cooks, who is the main reason they're here, but John Mechie, I think, should be good. as a rookie, and Nico Collins should be a fine number 3. So that alone should give it, some decent stuff. I'm interested in seeing what Brevin Jordan does, who was a 5th rounder last year, who only had around 200 snaps. Could he come into play? And then you got Phil Dorsett, Chris Conley. They're mostly depth guys, but that's okay. If you're a 4th and 5th wide receiver, that's not the end of the world, but it's still not spectacular, so that's why it's tier 4. All right, tier 3, which is the biggest of the tiers. There's 10 teams in tier 3. Starting off with the Broncos. The Broncos are a good team, but they're a good receiving core, but it's just like they have a lot of options, but how many high-end options do they have? That's why I couldn't put them any higher than this. Yeah, they got good players, like, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, all good players. KJ Hamler could, I still want to see him break out, but there's potential there. You have Albert O, Greg Dulcich, who was a 3rd rounder who I like. Eric Tomlinson's more of just a blocker, but as a tight end, even like Seth Williams, who was a 6th rounder in 2021, I think he could maybe do some nice things. But as a whole, it's just like, I just don't know who your star is. You have a lot of good receivers, but do you have someone who can like consistently win on a 3rd down and 7? I don't know, unless Jerry Jeudy takes that next step, which Sutton has shown that he can do that in the past, but he hasn't really done that last year. Maybe if Wilson, the receiving core, gets better, because there's a lot to like about this receiving core, but I think it might be a little bit overrated. I just have it at tier 3. The Chargers are another team on this list who, they're a depth thing. That's just really what it comes down to. And again, like I said, a lot of good receiving cores. We're gonna have to nitpick sometimes. Same, the Broncos I'm nitpicking, the Chargers I'm kind of nitpicking, because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are, a great duo. But it's like outside of that, I think Gerald Everett. I always try to say it Gerald for some reason. Gerald Everett. I think a lot of it will come down to him. How well does he do? Can he be that consistent 3rd option? And maybe he can. And if he does, they look a lot better. But I'd still like to see a good number 3 guy. I don't know if it'll be Josh Palmer, Jalen Guyton, DeAndre Carter. Maybe, but none of those guys have shown me enough to feel confident about them as like a good number 3. So again, like the Chargers, receiving core, like the top 2 guys, but I can't put it any higher than tier 3 for me. The Chiefs here are tier 3. Some people might be surprised and saying, wow, tier 3. I thought it would be lower than this. But they just, again, part of it is, you got to remember, it's not just receivers, it's receivers and tight ends. And Travis Kelce is elite. Travis Kelce is the best. He is the best receiving tight end in football. I said Andrews might have been the best overall tight end last year. Kelce's the best receiving tight end in football, maybe best receiving tight end ever. You also have just options. Valdez-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, and 2nd-round pick Sky Moore. Those are 4 quality options, along with a guy who can consistently win on like a 3rd and 7. That was enough for me to put them here in tier 3, but I still can't put them much higher than that because, again, lacking the high-end talent at the wide receiver position, unless Sky Moore is the next Tyreek Hill. This is a fine receiving core, but it's not top 10 or anything like that. I also have the Cowboys here. The Cowboys would probably be up at least 1 tier if they still had, Amari Cooper. They got rid of him due to cap constraints, or really due to cash constraints. That's typically how that works. Still have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, though, who are a great 1 and 2, but kind of similar to the Chargers. It's what's your 3rd option. Dalton Schultz is great, but he is still a tight end. Jalen Tolbert, 3rd rounder. If he can step into that role, they could be looking like a better unit. But that's just kind of my only real nitpick I have is kind of their depth. James Washington's fine, but again, I would like to see a little bit more depth, so they're still here. The Atlanta Falcons are tier 3, and I think some people felt like this should be lower. But listen, I believe in Drake London, so that's part of it. That's why I have them here. And also, Kyle Pitts is awesome. So you could have a really good 1 and 2 option. And again, that's what I kind of look for. What's your 3rd option? I have no idea. Brian Edwards should be all right. So it's not the worst 3rd option in the world, although he's a 2nd receiver. So that kind of makes it a little bit tougher. Olamide, again, I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize. Olamide Zacchaeus, who I haven't studied his film a ton, but he has some okay advanced metrics. Not spectacular, but at least enough to be a solid number 3. Damiere Byrd is depth, but Drake London and Kyle Pitts are the reason why they made tier 3. The rest of it is why they did not make tier 2 or tier 1. The Jets are here, so this could be a very fun thing for the Jets, who were tier 5 last year easily. Adding Garrett Wilson helps a lot, and adding CJ Uzama should help them a lot, along with Jeremy Ruckert. So their tight end situation should be good. And even Tyler Conklin, I like. So that's could be a good tight end grouping, along with, Garrett Wilson. You have still have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Berrios, and even Denzel Mims in there, who can all do nice things. So if Garrett Wilson can meet at number 1, this could potentially be even better. I don't know if that's going to happen, at least not right away, but there's still a lot to like about this Jets receiving core. The Detroit Lions, another team who were bad last year. They made a clear effort to try and improve the receiving core, and I think it worked all right. So first off, you have TJ Hawkinson still, who didn't have his best year last year, but is still very good. I still believe in him as a player. Jameson Williams could be he was my number 1 wide receiver out of the draft, so because of that, I like him. DJ Chark is an interesting player as well, because he has had some good years with Jacksonville, isn't coming off his best year, but a 1-year prove-it deal should be fine. Amon-Ra St. Brown has proven he's a fantastic slot guy, could be really good there. Quintez Cephas, we haven't seen a ton of him, but he's looked good when we have seen him. And Josh Reynolds is a, again, solid contributor as well. Not spectacular, but solid. So, and even Kayif Raymond is solid depth. So, guys to like here for the Detroit Lions. The Patriots are another team that is on this tier list. And the Patriots are such an interesting and unique unit because they don't have a star, but they have a lot of guys who can just do their role well. That's kind of the Patriots motto, right? Like Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar. Like, none of those guys are people that jump out at you as great, but they all do their role well. And the Patriots actually I could very easily see them, overperforming what you might expect given the name brand, just because they all do what they're supposed to do. Hunter Henry is also a very good option. Jonnu Smith can do some solid things. And then you have guys who could potentially come through still. There's potential with Tyquan Thornton, their 2nd-round pick, N'Keal Harry, Ty Montgomery, and Lil Jordan Humphrey, who mostly I just like his name. But, there's still maybe potential for all of those guys as well. So this could be a very interesting receiving core. Last 2 on this tier, and again, it's not in order, just in alphabetical order. The Saints again, the Saints are one of those, if things work out, this receiving core looks awesome. If things don't work out, this receiving core looks terrible. Michael Thomas is, great when on the field. Haven't seen him in years. Chris Olave, some people really like. I wasn't as big of a fan of him personally, which is maybe why I'm not quite as high on this Saints receiving core. But if you are someone who's a fan of him, you probably really like this receiving core because, he could be a solid contributor. And Jarvis Landry is someone who, again, there's a chance this works out. He wasn't great last year in Cleveland, but neither was Odell until he got to LA and then looked great. So maybe it was just a situation thing. I don't know. Even guys who I think also have some, are interesting to me. Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris, Kevin White. Those are all guys who can, they're all guys who, in my opinion, can do some nice things. And then we throw on Taysom Hill and Adam Troutman. There's a chance this receiving core is awesome, but it's just like, okay, well, what if Chris Olave plays like a rookie, Jarvis Landry is washed up, and Michael Thomas still isn't on the field and playing consistently when out of receiving core looks horrible? So that's kind of that's the concern there. And then the Steelers, who I'm sure if Steelers fans picked, they would have, every position group of theirs be tier 1. It seems like, obviously, I know, every fan base is, has its people that are delusional and believe that they are the best. Steelers are a big fan base, so they tend to get mad at me when I'm sometimes a little bit harsher on them than other people will be. But the Steelers have a good receiving core. They have a solid, again, a lot of depth with this Steelers team. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, who was a 2nd-round pick, I think could be really good. Calvin Austin, who was a 4th-round pick, who could be really good. And even Gunnar Olszewski, who is more of a special teams guy, but maybe, you can throw him in and do some things as a receiver. Miles Boykin's mostly depth. Pat Freiermuth, a good tight end. So a lot of depth here, but again, who is their number 1 guy? I know Steelers fans love Deontay Johnson. I just don't know if he's like a great receiver, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know if he's up there with, say, like even a DK Metcalf. Like, to me, I think clearly DK Metcalf is the better option. I think he's good. I think he's a quality receiver. I think that he is probably a top 32 receiver in football, but is he a top 15? I don't think so. So just because of that and the lack of, I think, top-end talent with this receiving core, that's why it's still tier 3, even though I love the depth. All right, tier two. First, let's talk some balls. The balls, also known as the Washington football team. Again, Terry McLaurin, who's fantastic. Jahan Dotson, who they went out and they, drafted, who could potentially be very good. And Curtis Samuel, who is another guy who I think will have a really good season if he can stay on the field, which I suspect he will. Demi Brown and Cam Sims should also add some nice depth, and Logan Thomas should add some nice depth. So I think that there's an option that you have three really good receivers. Dotson doesn't have to be a number 2. He can be a number 3. And even sometimes you might not even have to do that, because I think that you still have Demi Brown and Cam Sims who potentially can come in and do some nice things. I think Logan Thomas is a good receiving tight end. So the balls are here as a tier 2 team. So are the Cardinals, this might be a bit of a hot take. I guess what I'll say is the Cardinals are tier 2 with DeAndre Hopkins. They won't be a tier 2 team the first 6 weeks of the season, but you don't win a Super Bowl in the first 6 games of the season, so that's why I'm putting them tier 2. But it all depends on how much you talk about the the suspension to Hopkins. But Hopkins is elite, and you still have Marquise Brown, who should be a good number 2 option. I think he will fit that scheme well. Not worth a first rounder, but still should help them out a lot. And then like Rondell Moore, AJ Green, and Andy Isabella should be able to fill out the depth. And also tight end grouping is just fantastic. Max Williams, Zach Ertz, Trey McBride, they're, the guy they drafted. That should be great. So that also moves the needle for me. Also, I have the Eagles here. The Eagles make tier 2, where just a couple years ago, in Wentz's last year, this was an awful receiving core. They've done a lot of good work. Drafting Devonta Smith, who was good as a rookie. Trading for A.J. Brown, who's good just in general. He's fantastic. This allows Quez Watkins to kind of be a 3. Maybe Zach Pascal or Jalen Reagor can show something. And you also have Dallas Goedert on top of this. So this is a really fun receiving core. So is the Rams, who they did lose Robert Woods, and they've lost Odell for the time being. Maybe they'll get him back, and then that'll change things. But they got Allen Robinson back, which should be, there's a chance that this is awesome. Again, didn't have his best season last year. We'll see. But you still have Cooper Kupp, who had his best season last year, maybe the best season of all time as a wide receiver last year. And then still Van Jefferson, along with, guys who have potential in Ben Skowronek and Tutu Atwell, and tight end grouping, Tyler Higbee. And it's deep with Kendall Blanton, and then the Super Bowl hero, Bryson Hopkins. Maybe hero is a strong word, but Super Bowl contributor in Hopkins. The Seahawks as well, who the Seahawks issue for the past few years has been kind of depth at this position. That's why it's not tier 1. But DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, that's a fantastic tandem. And Noah Fant should help them as well. Just don't know how much confidence I have in Marquise Goodwin and Freddie Swain to consistently get open if Lockett and Metcalf are both getting doubled. So that's my issue. Vikings are the last one on this tier, where they kind of a similar thing. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen are awesome. KJ Osborne's solid. I still have hope in Amir Smith-Marset, who was a 5th rounder last year, didn't do much though, and Irv Smith Jr., who was hurt last year, but he was good in 2020. So there's stuff to like about this Vikings receiving core. Finally, tier 1, the cream of the crop, top guys. First, of course, the Bengals, and again, not in order, alphabetical. I'm saying this several times throughout the video because I know some people will skip ahead. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, you're number 1. And even like Hayden Hurst and Drew Sample, solid tight ends there. So that kind of goes without saying. And then the Buccaneers as well, with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Russell Gage, who should be a good number 3. They also have Cameron Brate. They might get Gronkowski back, but I haven't put it on there yet because they don't have him as of now. But they drafted Cade Otton, so they have the depth there if he doesn't come back. And you still have guys like Cyril Grayson, Scotty Miller, and Tyler Johnson, who are guys maybe you don't want as your entire receiving core, which they had notably during that second Saints game when they got shut out. But, as long as they can stay healthy, this should be an elite receiving core, which it wasn't healthy last year. So there's concerns there, but that's the only real concern I have. The Miami Dolphins, who, again, this is one of those, like, Tyreek Hill, I think, is the best receiver in football still. I would give it to him. And Jalen Waddle's still awesome. And I like what Cedric Wilson brings to a team. I like him. I don't love him, but I like him. I like what Mike Gesicki brings to a team. He's basically just a wide receiver anyway, although we'll probably block more under Mike McDaniel. And then, you have, Lynn Bowden, Eric Uzankama, not sure how to pronounce his name yet. He was a 4th-round pick. Really what it comes down to is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are awesome, and so is Mike Gesicki, so it's tier 1. 49ers, I do have them here as well. And again, it's Sometimes it's how good is your third option, and this is the team with a really good third option. If Kittle's your first option, or really probably Debo's your first option, Kittle's your second option, and Brandon Ayuk is your third option, that's a great number 3. That's a great top 3. Kyle Juszczyk, I also put on my notes just because, like, yeah, he can play. And then Jawan Jennings and Raymond McLeod are solid depth, but it's really the top 3 that puts them here. And finally, I did have the Raiders here as one of my tier 1 teams because, listen, Davante Adams is that elite guy who will get open consistently. You have Hunter Renfrow, you have Darren Waller, and even maybe like some potential depth in Keelan Cole, Demarcus Robinson, Foster Moreau. But really, it's the Waller, Adams, Renfrow tandem. Those 3 should be fantastic. So that's why I have them tier 1. But yep, those are my tiers. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.